Uh, good. What are we? Afternoon. Good afternoon. Good lunchtime, everybody. My name's Chris Norton. We're here to talk about the COVID-19 and preparing your marketing plan for the second wave, as Emma just highlighted there. Before we start, we'll get into a couple of introductions. My name's Chris Norton, as I've said. I'm the founder of Prohibition. We are a integrated PR and social media agency based in Chapelton in Leeds, but we've got clients all over. We work for various clients like Yorkshire Water, Transport for the North, and loads of consumer clients as well, like Goldsmiths, Interflora, etc., etc. And last year we were Agency of the Year. Will, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Will Ockenden. I'm the other owner and director of Prohibition, and I'm gonna take the second half of this presentation and really kind of look at some of the kind of practical lessons, practical steps you guys can take to effectively weather what we are calling the second wave. So yeah, hopefully you'll find it really useful.
Yeah, so what we're going to cover, we've put 60 minutes, but it's a bit shorter, this one, so probably about 40, 45 minutes. Who we are, but I've got one slide on us and that's it. The impact of COVID-19 and where we are now, marketing lessons for businesses from the first lockdown, things that we spotted, COVID-19 and Q4, how are customers' attitudes changing, perceptions are changing. Obviously, there's another third vaccine announcement today, so lots changing all the time by the day and weeks, etc. So then Will's going to cover lessons learned in 2020. How to get out, so the COVID-19 exit strategy. Good luck with that one. Tips to ensure you're ready for the second wave, and then, as Emma said, we'll have some sort of Q&A. So if you've got any questions, we'll be willing to share whatever we can with you. So, Prohibition, as I say, we're predominantly a integrated PR agency for public relations, media relations, that sort of thing in background, but we do everything. We do various things such as strategy, PR strategy, social strategy, content marketing strategy, community management there. So we look after various high street brands' social media presences and become their brand online. Content marketing, we do everything from copywriting right through to high-end video, TV ads, all sorts of stuff we can do and have done. And we've got a film studio set up next door today, shooting a few things. Amplification, so we've got we do a lot in paid social, and we've got an artificial intelligence, the world's best artificial intelligence in paid social, which we've recently paid a lot of money for. And then finally, we've got here like next generation measurement, which is like detailed reporting and analytical stuff basically for clients. So that's enough about us. Let's get on to the good stuff. So the purpose of this session is aimed at helping you understand the impact of COVID-19 on customer spending and attitudes towards brands and companies. We're also going to provide some practical steps to help you navigate the second wave. And basically, some of what we're going to talk about is consumer spending and consumer things and consumer behaviours. But obviously, they have a big influence on what the B2B, because we've got clients in B2C and B2B. And a lot of what happens in B2C is copycatted by B2B, especially on social media as well. So, yeah, it should help in terms of understanding what's going on. So, we've put here our COVID recovery series, which is in 3 steps. So back in just in April, actually, so we did 3 events. The first one was in April, and it was looking at to a post-COVID world. And believe me, it was tough looking at a post-COVID world because literally then people were losing their revenue hand over fist. B2B businesses, B2C businesses, it didn't matter. And so we felt we had to do something with where we were then and what we should do, and we gave some advice then. And then we did our second session, Reaching the New Normal, which was covering the marketing trends, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third one, which is what's today, which is Managing the Second Wave, which we're pretty much in at the moment. And I think maybe we're coming over the top of the crest of, let's hope there's a second wave. Let's hope there's not a third one after Christmas. So, managing the second wave then, no businesses could have been prepared for the first lockdown. So nobody was prepared, not even the government. And so customers were understanding and forgiving of companies. I mean, some companies struggled, everybody struggled, and people understood. But now in the second wave, customers are a lot less forgiving. they expect companies and SMEs to have learned and adapted, and they'll hold us to a higher standard during the second wave. And I've seen a lot of that on the feedback on our events, with people saying that customers are expecting more. I mean, just if you just look at the traffic at the moment, I was saying this morning that this second lockdown the traffic this morning was just like a normal day. So very, very different times, but still a lockdown in the national sense. So the impact of COVID-19, what's happened to consumer habits. We're going to look at data that we've pulled all from lots of different sources. We've got access to a number of tools that we pay for, which is consumer purchasing data. We've got something called Global Web Index, which is the world's biggest online survey, which is expensive, but we use for these purposes, and a few other sources as well. I've put the sources in, and we'll send you the deck afterwards. But this is just to show you what's been going on. So the changing customer. So the latest analysis from YouGov shows that customer confidence continued to improve. This is in October for the 5th month in a row, even as the second wave of coronavirus grew. And that could be probably one of the reasons why people are still out and about. But tiered and national lockdowns, changing restrictions, and a second wave continue to change our habits. So what changes have we seen already? Well, personal finance is improving. So this is the last 12 months. This is from PricewaterhouseCoopers. So you can see that in September 2019, if just to explain what you're looking at here, each of these boxes are different quarters. So you've got on the left is September 2019, and you can see that there's a trend line here with how people view their personal finances. The black is whether they're going to be much better off next year, and red is obviously bad. Red is real bad, but they're going to be much worse off, and all the others are in between. And as you can see, September and December, people are fairly positive. Things are looking good, quite consistent and great, and looking positive towards the end of last year. But then March 2020, obviously coronavirus hits nastily in the middle of that month, and it just completely quadruples on how many people are thinking they're going to be worse off next year. But there is some improvement, and literally as the summer months come in, the people that said they're going to be much worse off halves, and people start to be a bit more positive. And similar in that sort of filtered through to September as well. A little bit less than that, probably because some things the signs were starting to come back. But quite interesting to see how people are viewing their personal finances. There's been an increase in social media usage. You can see here. So as I say, we've got access to loads of different bits and pieces, and this shows that Facebook reported a 70% increase in usage across its apps. So not just its Facebook, across all the apps Facebook owns: Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger. It owns pretty much all of them, apart from the ones it can't buy, like Snapchat and TikTok. So Generation Z, 27. There's been an increase of 27%, and they're the people that use it the most. Millennials, slightly older, 30% increase by them. A 29%, again, nearly 30% increase in Facebook usage by my age group, and then 15% even in the people that hardly don't use it as much in the baby boomers category. So, consumer spending then. So, how COVID-19 continues to have an impact. If we can look at this is from, as I said, one of our tools, Global Web Index, and this is up to the last quarter that we could get from this data, which is Q2 2020, and this is looking at the biggest decreases. So you can see the major purchases, the top 10 fallers, so the percentage of global internet users, things that they're not buying. And basically you can see that travel tickets, which is a fairly obvious one, has dropped from nearly 23% to 19%. Concert tickets have dropped by 5%. You know, things have dropped across the board, but there is some good news in here as well, so don't worry. But you can see, I'll let you guys, we'll send it through afterwards so you can have a proper peruse of that. But again, as I say, these spending patterns and behavior patterns are quite interesting because it filters through for both B2B and B2C. So younger consumers are spending more on home items. So you can see here that Q3 2019, and then Q4, so December time, spending was roughly the same. And then obviously Q1 spending on sofas, home exercise equipment and garden furniture has increased by nearly 2 to 3% on some things. So basically we realised we were sat on crap sofas, and we realised we couldn't go to the gym, and we realised we could sit in our garden. So we bought some garden furniture. Online, this is interesting though. So this is true across the board, whether you're B2B, B2C, whatever. Online shopping has grown, and that's changed. That's a permanent shift. So you can see here that wave 3 in our data is April the 22nd to 27th, and 43% of people plan to shop online more. In May, the end of May, a month later, 46% plan to still shop more even than that. And in July, end of July, 49%, so 50% more. And it's going to have continued that when the next data comes through. Online shopping, digital first strategy for everybody. It has changed. That change has happened now and will continue. That's why all the supermarkets, etc., are just going to ramp up their digital offerings. 58% of UK consumers are actively choosing online shopping over physical stores. Well, mainly now anyway. They can still go into supermarkets, etc. But yeah, that's quite interesting. So, looking for 2021 then, the COVID-19 bounce back, we've got to look at where are you at the moment. So, at Prohibition, I'm a crisis management specialist. I've been involved in a lot of crises and keeping stories out of them. This is a global pandemic crisis. Where are you? So, you've got 3 stages here. So, you've got the crisis, which is focus on understanding what exactly is happening, tackling customers' immediate needs if you're a business. Employee and internal comms are a priority. That's pretty much where you saw when coronavirus happened. It was quite interesting for me being in marketing, watching TV and all the ads, how they stopped and there wasn't much being advertised anywhere because people were trying to weigh up what to do next. Then you got the recovery stage, which is as things start to normalize and we get used to the new, what's going on, businesses will start ramping up marketing again. So that's when you started to see the B2B adverts, focusing more on we're here to help you. And in fact, I've tweeted something yesterday it's really irritating, that message. We're here to help you now because everybody did it and everybody's done it. It's become like a bit cliche and a bit, but that was the general gist of that period. And then the new normal, which is where it depends on where you think you are, but things will not be the same. So companies will emerge with different business models. So digital first being one of them, changed environments. So, if you're in the entertainment industry or the travel industry, it's a very different environment at the moment. So different go-to-market strategies. So I said we ran 3 events, and I think obviously our events are all B2B, and I think this is quite interesting. So this is data from our COVID webinar in August 2020, and we asked people, what stage is your brand in? And you can see that most people felt that they were out of crisis and into recovery. When we did it in April, the event in April, everybody was in crisis. So, 90-odd%. And then we asked all the 300 marketers, when did you last update your marketing strategy? And this is interesting. So business plans, marketing strategies, they're all tied together for you guys. When did you last, because we work on 3-year plans, that went out the window. Year plans gone out the window. We were down to weekly plans at one point during the height of the crisis, but now we're back to 3 quarterly plans, which is good for my health. And with it, you can see here that people have updated their marketing strategy, mainly more than half in the last 3 months. Now, we asked that question in normal times, and people normally say every year, it's annual. So within the last 3 months is quite interesting. There has been a shift. You have to change regularly. So the shape of things to come. So Martin Sorrell's a big advertising expert, for those of you that don't know, and he said that the recovery was going to be more reverse square root shaped rather than a V-shaped decline, which was quite interesting. Yeah, a V-shaped like that. And so I thought that was quite interesting. So let's have a look at actually what's happened. So this is fascinating. So this data is from the Office of National Statistics, which we pulled. So you can see here that this is hotels and accommodation. You can see, I'll let you guess when the coronavirus crisis happened. And you can see there's a small recovery. I mean, this is why when you realise that the government and any government would have its work cut out to try and make our economy work properly. Air transport is hardly recovered at all. The numbers from EasyJet just the other day was 1.4 billion, I think, that they've lost. They'd never lost before, and they lost 1.4 billion this year. Creative arts and entertainment had not as much of a loss and a little bit of a recovery, but still struggling. Food and beverage services dropped and had a bit of a recovery. Obviously, it'll probably be down a bit again now. And I was quite interested that alcohol had a drop at all, because alcohol sales during the first lockdown, I felt, had gone up. And whether they were in pubs, obviously they'd gone down because they'd been shut. But a lot of people were drinking at home and having Zoom parties or whatever you call them. And then obviously motor repair and trade, which seems to fully recover. Both the last two seem to pretty much fully recover to where they were. So quite interesting to see that. Yeah, motor and that's what I've put there, and all the others are following the reverse square root trend. So annoyingly, Martin Sorrell got it right. So consumer spend is to decrease over the next 12 months. So if we just look at this, this is from another survey from PricewaterhouseCoopers just last month, about 6 weeks ago. And you can see that when they're asking people, what they're asking is if above the 0 point in that line is whether they're going to spend more. And the only thing that people are going to say that they're going to spend more with their spending intentions is grocery shopping. Everything else, improving the home, health and well-being, technology, right down to going out and eating out and holidays. That's probably why the government tried to do, even though it was a counterproductive, the eat out to help out thing with the second wave. It's because the industry, you can see that people's intentions are basically not to go out and not to spend. So they've got a real pickle trying to sort that out. So the impact on marketing then, what effect has all that had on marketing in the last 6 months? Well, it's had a lot, because we've done a few of these, as I've said. So digital marketing, email marketing, totally changed. Activity remains higher than last year. It's up 15%. So a sixth on last year, which I thought is fascinating. But that's decreased from 33% in March. It literally went, I've got a graphic in a minute to show you that. Email marketing went mental when all of the marketing stopped. We've actually got a client at Prohibition. We've got a lot of the digital clients. We've got a client that didn't do digital marketing and came to us in a panic because they did everything face-to-face. So we've had to help them upgrade, their digital offerings so they can sell online and get leads. And now all their leads are obviously digital, and they don't have to, because they can't go out and do face-to-face sales, etc. Web traffic is its highest since the pandemic began, and customer-initiated online chat volume is now double 2019 levels. So people are asking more questions online. Web traffic is its highest. So to give you a feel for that, on the left is web traffic, and you can see the jump. The web traffic was slightly down at the beginning, and then obviously the pandemic hits and it gets higher and higher and higher, and that's from HubSpot, US and UK, I think, data that is. And then on the right-hand side is email marketing from MailChimp, which is fascinating because you can see right up to March, email marketing is, can be quite annoying if you get loads and loads of emails, but look at how it jumps during the pandemic. It just went bonkers, and then it's dropped, but it's still higher than what it was, because obviously there's a lot of businesses can't sell. So that you can see that there's been an active shift in how B2B businesses are doing business. So what that means is digital advertising is on the rise again. So the forecast of the pandemic, 2020, it was marked that digital ad spend would decline, which would be the first time since digital channels had come out. It's not happened, obviously, because of that. The latest reports now say that digital ad spending will grow by 0.3%. So not grow by a lot, but the way the economy is, it's still growth, which is where people are going digital first. Retail will be the biggest digital ad spender, and travel will be the least, obviously, because the travel sector has been badly hit, with just 6.8% of digital spending. And there's a graphic there from eMarketer, which you guys can take a look at in your own time. So, Will, I'll let you take over from here, isn't it? Your moment. I'll let you take for that.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm having a few internet issues, so if I start stopping, apologies for that. Right, I'm just going to share my screen. Is that displaying okay?
Yep.
Cool. So yeah, thanks for that, Chris. So obviously Chris has kind of talked through the theory, the context, and I think, whatever level of kind of expertise you're at when it comes to marketing, it's always useful to see that kind of broader context, and obviously everything happening in the economy, when it comes to kind of consumer and B2B spending. All of that is really, really important, because that will influence what you guys need to do from a marketing perspective. Whether you're the most sophisticated marketer or quite an intermediate marketer, it doesn't matter. Your marketing has to adapt and in kind of tune with the changing times. So I'm going to kind of talk practically in a moment about the steps you can take, etc. But again, I want to kind of talk about what other people are doing and the kind of challenges what other brands are facing. So first of all, the kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of COVID-19. I thought it was useful to share, what other brands are doing and where they've got it wrong. So when it comes to the bad, unfortunately, this is something we're going to see a lot more of, and a number of businesses have and are and will go out of business. They're just unable to operate in this new world. We've seen Inchu, the shopping centre group, Britain's biggest shopping centre owner, falling into administration, clearly because lockdown means people simply don't go out, don't go to shopping centres anymore. Similar story with Cineworld. Very difficult to operate in a socially distanced world. A cinema group, similarly, when we come out of this latest lockdown, hospitality is going to take an enormous hit. So certain businesses simply aren't able to operate in this new world. The ugly. Now I'm going to come on to this later on. Now this is a consumer example, but what we saw quite a lot of, particularly during the first lockdown and sort of subsequently, is brands trying to kind of capitalize on the lockdown and the sentiment, but getting it really, really wrong. And people just don't like it. So Dettol did a big kind of, this was when we all started going back to the office, which was that in September? End of August, September time, wasn't it?
1st of September.
Feels like a million years ago. So they ran this really kind of cringy advert about, hearing an alarm, putting on a tie, carrying a handbag, the smell of coffee, proper bants, the boss's jokes, and it was really misjudged. Most people didn't want to go back to the office, and they felt actually in danger if they went back to the office, and it just kind of really missed the mark. And I think there's a number of other brands that really they're launching campaigns and doing marketing activity that really goes against the flow of the public mood, and I think that's a real mistake. There are brands that get it right though, and a lot of brands are kind of adapting to this new world. So Ralph Lauren has done a partnership with Snapchat, which allows people to basically try on clothes via kind of emoji characters, because they know people can't go into stores, and that's been really well received. Carling did a really nice campaign with influencers, all about kind of this was a brand purpose campaign. Brand purpose is a big kind of jargon, a big trend we hear a lot about now. And they did a campaign to support the local pub and the local pub's role in the community, and they pitched it absolutely right, and it was a really nicely executed campaign. And then you don't have to be a massive brand to do this stuff. These guys caught our eye. They're based in Australia, a cafe. And they launched a pay it with a post-it initiative, where basically you buy a coffee and then you buy a second coffee that's actually gifted to somebody who's lost their job during the pandemic. And it quite rightly got a lot of positive, traction. And then Yorkshire Tea, a brand we always like to see what they're doing. They launched the socially distanced teapot. It's a shameless stunt, but it pushes their product, and it's quite humorous, and it's really kind of in line. Unlike the Dettol advert, it sits much better with the kind of public sentiment.
And it was trying to bring some like positivity as well, because at the time the media, I mean, obviously there's more positivity with the vaccine now, but at the time the media was really negative, wasn't it? So that's
exactly. And these are B2C, consumer examples, but the same principles, exist in the business to business markets as well. If you operate in those markets, it's about finding, it's about judging the public mood or your customer's mood and creating content or creating campaigns that are in line with that. So the no pressure here, but the COVID-19 exit strategy. There is no silver bullet, unfortunately, but there are certain things you can do to prepare yourself to make sure you fare as well as possible. So again, this quote we talked about at the beginning, the idea is your customers are going to be less forgiving the second time around. The first time around, of course, there's supply chain issues, there's communication issues. We're in an unprecedented situation. Second time around, people aren't going to be as forgiving. So it's really, really important to get it right for the second wave. And, hopefully there won't be a third wave. If there's a third wave, we absolutely need to get it right. So a few kind of quick takeaways from what we learned from lockdown 1. I think we all learned very, very quickly some quite hard lessons. From our perspective, I think what we learned was customer communications is key. It's really important when you go into a pandemic situation to really clearly and decisively communicate with your customers. So, what impact does it have on your business? What impact does it have on your service? Is there going to be delays? Are there going to be products that aren't available? Really clear communication from the outset. Reading the room, this comes back to what I was just talking about. We need to try and understand very quickly what it is our customers want and what their mood is. You know, do they want reassurance? Do they want entertaining? Do they want their minds taken off the harsh reality of the world? Do they, you know, do they want business as usual? You need to try and understand as quickly as possible what they want, and don't get it wrong, because there's nothing worse than a customer group that want reassurance and you're trying to sell to them or offer them a buy one get one free or whatever it might be. You know, that's only going to jar. Prepare to pause. You know, no matter how big a campaign or how long you've been working on it, if it's not right for the current situation, you need to pause it or get rid of it altogether. And an awful lot of our clients, you know, we've been working on campaigns for 6 months preparing them, and we had to pause them, you know, because it's just not right to kind of push through a campaign during a pandemic. We're seeing a big shift across the board as well of customers, again, both B2B and B2C, wanting companies to actually do the right thing by their employees. So not sacking them all, for example, as you know, a lot of the big kind of retailers, for example, Sports Direct, the Arcadia Group, they got this wrong really, and you know they were kind of quite, you know, Weatherspoons as well with the furloughing staff scandal. I think increasingly customers are going to be looking at how you treat your own people, and that's really, really important. And finally, don't capitalize on the situation. You know, even if we are cashing in on the crisis in some capacity, for example, if you sell PPE, we can't be seen to be doing that. So, you know, be ready to be helpful. Don't be cynical, and don't obviously capitalize on the situation. And they're the big trends we saw from lockdown 1. So when Chris talked about the new normal. I think we all want to be in the new normal again, and I think research would suggest that a lot of us feel we are already there. There's 3 key things we've got to do really when we kind of prepare for this new normal. We need to understand what's changed operationally to our businesses. So are our products and services still relevant? Is our go-to-market strategy still relevant? Is it going to work? Does our supply chain work? There will be things that have changed and will be things that haven't changed. For the things that have changed, we need to really understand what that means in terms of our go-to-market proposition. More important is looking at how customer behaviour and sentiment has shifted. So the way your customers were 12 months ago isn't going to be the way they are now. You know, they're going to have different attitudes. They're going to be using different media. They're going to have different spending patterns, and we need to very quickly understand what's changed. And then taking stage 1 and 2, we need to look at our marketing strategy and actually critique it. Is it still fit for purpose? Chances are it won't be. So we need to change that quite quickly. And Chris already mentioned, you know, we've gone from kind of annual marketing strategies to, in some cases, monthly marketing strategies. And I think one lesson is we need to be a lot more responsive. You know, we need to be looking at our marketing strategies each quarter at least and see if they're still fit for purpose. Now, customers, in our view, can be grouped into one of 3 areas. Led by anxiety, led by caution, or led by comfort. Now, the customers that are led by anxiety, they're still in crisis mode. You know, they're still panicked. They're still not settled down into this new normal, and they have a need for protection. And as a brand, you need to offer them that protection and that reassurance. They might be led by caution. So they're shifting out of that stage and they're moving out of this kind of crisis mode and into recovery. Actually, I think most customers are in this kind of caution/comfort stage. They need something slightly different. They need more reassurance. And then when they shift into the led by comfort stage, this is where they've hit the new normal and they want to carry on as normal, but against the context of this new world. Now, what's really, really important, this is easier said than done, of course, as it often is in marketing. We need to understand which stage our customers are in, and we need to adapt our marketing accordingly. If your customers are all led by comfort and they're in this kind of new normal stage, you know, we can't be talking to them as if there's still a crisis. That's going to jar. So we need to get this right as soon as we can. We would say use your data to try and understand where your customers are at. Now, all of you will have access to data, first party and third party data. You might not think you've got much data, but you will have. Now, I'm going to talk about how you can use data in a minute, but really we need to understand where your audience is now. You know, what do they want now versus what they used to want? What kind of channels do they use? You know, do they still visit websites? Are they still on social media? Do they still read traditional press? Has that changed? Chances are it will have changed. You know, are there any geographical patterns? You know, so during the regional lockdowns, for example, we saw a massive, with our kind of national e-commerce retailers, we saw when Leicester got locked down, that had a massive impact on the way people in the Leicester region, for example, were spending money versus the way people in London were spending money. And we also finally need to understand what type of content do our audience want. And again, what they wanted a year ago probably isn't what they want today. We work with Interflora, for example, and we've seen a real shift, there. The kind of content they wanted then, they're much more interested in kind of lifestyle, emotive, softer content rather than sales content now. And that is reflective of this kind of shift in public sentiment that we're seeing. So there's two types of, when we look at kind of customer behavior, there's going to be a lot of customer behavior that hasn't changed and will never change. So I'm going to come on to this, but these are the kind of deeper and more timeless, behaviors. So people will always want to buy product. They will always want to do this, that, and the other. There'll be certain things that haven't changed during the pandemic, but there'll be other things, predominantly customer sentiment actually, that have what we would say has seismically changed. And we need to understand what has changed and what hasn't changed. So a few kind of funny little examples. So this shift to a cashless society, that was a massive change as a result of the pandemic, and actually that's likely to stick. Toilet paper sales, that was a temporary change. We saw a huge spike in people wanting toilet paper, and we'll probably see that again, but people aren't going to consume more toilet paper their whole lives from now on. It's only a result of the pandemic. Similarly, people shifting to video conferencing and Zoom calls, that's something in the B2B markets that Chris and I have debated endlessly. Is that going to stick? Are people going to, now avoid traveling for 3 hours in a day to go to a meeting when they could do it via Zoom? Or is that going to be a temporary change? And what we need to do is work out what has changed permanently and what hasn't changed. So we've made some kind of predictions and judgments on what will continue to change. So the types of things which will continue to change and are likely to stick, the types of social media platforms people use. So, we're seeing an increase across the board in people using social media, and the platforms they use will likely change. You need to look at your data and try and understand what those are. The types of content people want, particularly the kind of the topic, so like I mentioned the Interflora example, but the types of content people want, is starting to shift. Online purchase patterns, people are rejecting kind of bricks and mortar stores, and they are increasingly buying online, and the chances are the big ticket items they buy are likely to shift online as well. So cars, for example, houses may even shift to buying online, which sounds crazy, but it could happen. And message receptiveness and impact, you need to look at your key messages, that you've been talking about, and look at whether they are still working with your key customers. So how do we get to this point? A few people might be thinking, we haven't got any data. What do we actually do? So we would divide data into first party and third party. First party data is the data that you own. So if you run Google AdWords, for example, pay per click, that's going to give you a wealth of data. If you're running social media ads, again, that will give you huge amounts of data. Your Google Analytics, if you haven't got Google Analytics set up on your website, you should have, because it gives you so much information about who's visiting your website, where they're going and what they're doing. And what we can do with all of this first party data is actually try to spot trends. So look at it a year ago and look at it now and try to make forecasts. So is a different customer type coming to your website? Are customers suddenly interested in the deals and offers page, or the guarantee page, or the quality control page versus when they didn't used to be? And then the other side of it is third party data. So there's various kind of tools you can use, of which we have a load of these, where you can actually kind of find out what consumers are thinking and are doing, and there's various techniques you can do to find that information, which I'll come on to. So I'm not going to go into tons of detail here because it's quite technical, but I mentioned AdWords. So anyone that runs AdWords or Google PPC will be familiar with this, but really it gives you a wealth of information. And, this shows from March to May this year. So clearly just before pandemic, and then post-pandemic, or the post-immediate first wave of the pandemic. And what we see are massive dips, so travel, of course, travel, top right, takes a huge dip, the click-through rate drops. But clothing actually goes up because people are sat at home thinking, right, what am I going to do? Let's spend some money. And lots of other metrics come into play. So the cost per click, the price might go up or the price might go down. But the point is, really look at your AdWords if you're running these and try to understand what is changing and, what does this mean for you? Similarly, the way people search online, these are a couple of quite obvious, searches we ran, but, holidays takes a huge dip, particularly as we get past September. But look, when it comes to face masks, this was when I believe the government announced face masks were going to become mandatory. So we see a huge spike in this. And similarly, we saw spikes around how to cut your hair at home, for example, and there's some quite amusing things, but there's also some really valuable insight as well. We can understand ultimately what customers or what consumers are interested in. Google Analytics, we could do a 2 or 3 hour training session on Google Analytics, but it's relatively easy to use at a basic level, and really it tells you who's visiting your website, who they are, what they're interested in, what their demographic is, and are they converting? Are they requesting a callback? Are they requesting one of your salespeople to call them? Are they buying? And it's really important to keep a close eye on this, at least monthly, and understand what's changing and try to understand why it's changing as well. And this is all about trying to understand these changing trends. And I keep saying this, but your marketing then needs to be adapted in line with that.
And I think on analytics, it works across B2B, B2C, whichever sectors you're in. Because during the first wave, internet traffic on our website, for instance, on some of our clients, were dropped off a cliff for about that 2 week period, 2 or 3 week period, where everybody was sat at home thinking, what the hell is going to happen? They're just watching those news bulletins. And then it's picked back up, so you can see clear trends just by a close examination of your Google Analytics can really start to show you how things are changing and where people are coming from and what they're doing, which is useful stuff.
Absolutely. And if we're going to get a little bit more advanced, we can look at what we call social media listening. Now, this is essentially tracking how people are talking online. So we've got various tools that can track what people are saying on blogs, on forums, on social networks. And you can put in different terminology. So you might want to find out how they're talking about your company, how they're talking about a category, for example, pubs, alcohol, whatever it might be. We've done a very broad search to give you an idea of, the idea basically is that we can understand at a glance what people care about. So we looked at, in April, we did a quick search and we talked about how people, we looked at how people were talking about coronavirus. Obviously, lockdown was one of the big themes, but the narratives were about family life. So family, kids, children, house, people were suddenly spending all this time with their family. And again, a lot of brands realized there was an opportunity there. People almost rediscovered their family, they rediscovered their friends and the importance of relationships. However, September, it becomes a bit more cynical, the conversation. We repeat the search, but people are almost a bit tired of their kids running around the house and doing Zoom calls and things like that. And we start to talk about the economy, start to talk about students, probably blaming students for the relevant outbreaks. We start to talk about the police, probably in the context of enforcing lockdown. And again, come November, it shifts again. And so it's a really useful way at a glance to see what people are talking about in a particular area. All of that's fine. There's a lot of data. You're probably thinking now, oh, okay, we can look at this, that, and the other. But data on its own is pointless. What we need to do is turn it into insight. So what we'd recommend you do is, compile all of these data points and start making judgments about it. Start trying to spot trends. So what's changed over time? What's changed in the last year? What trends can we spot? And then start thinking about insights. So, okay, what does this mean for us? Does it mean our messaging has to change? Does it mean our customer doesn't care about our products anymore? Does it mean there's an opportunity for us? And we would recommend you do this, particularly peak pandemic time, probably now, repeat it weekly. Customer sentiment does change quite quickly. When we settle down, probably do it monthly. And then all of this insight we need to apply against our customer personas. So who are your key, or who are your key customers? You've probably got 2 or 3 key customers, and think, what does this mean for them? And then you can start to pull out trends, and you can start to pull out, you might think, okay, we need to change this, we need to change that messaging, we need to be on different platforms, and it's a very worthwhile exercise. So a bit of a summary on the second wave. Like I said, there's no silver bullet, but all of this will put you in really good stead, and there's nothing worse than having a marketing strategy that was written for the 2019 world, pre-pandemic. It needs to be adapted for what we've gone through for the last 8 or 9 months. So like I said, annual marketing strategies have now become monthly strategies. Marketing really needs to be much more responsive. It needs to be sharper, more effective. Certainly from our perspective, our clients are demanding much more scrutiny over budgets. They want much greater results. Luckily, we're a social media agency, so everything's trackable, and we can demonstrate those direct results. And this kind of shift towards purpose and authenticity is a trend we're seeing as well. So, customers, both in B2B and B2C markets, are wanting, their vendors that they work with, or companies they buy from, to have a brand purpose, to do the right thing, to be an authentic and genuine brand, not a brand that either doesn't care about the pandemic or doesn't care about its staff. That's not gonna wash anymore, and people are increasingly tuned into these elements. So we'll send this through, but we thought this would be quite useful for you guys as a bit of a checklist. So in terms of assessing whether your strategy still works, look at these elements. Messaging, is it still relevant? What you should do is test new messaging. If you think, okay, it might not be relevant, test new messaging with certain customers. Social media platforms, have your customers' social behaviors changed, or have they stayed the same? Are your personas still relevant? Do you still know what you know about your customers? Is that still true? Do customers still purchase in the same way? Traditionally they may have found you via word of mouth. Are they now finding you via paid social ads? Are they not finding you at all? So use these as a bit of a checklist. This can be a 10-minute exercise, and even spending 10 minutes on this will put you in a better position than if you've not thought about these factors at all. And if you haven't got a robust marketing plan, use this as the basis to create one. Again, this is a kind of back of a fag packet marketing plan. You can look at these 5 elements, and straight away you'll be in a better position than you were half an hour ago. So customers' needs and behaviours are continuing to change. They've always changed, to be quite honest, but the pandemic has accelerated this, and we're seeing much more rapid changes in behaviours and needs. Customers, more than ever, are looking for the 3 A's: affordability, authenticity, and action. And when we say affordability, that's not about cheap, it's about value. It's about demonstrating value. The desire for meaning from companies is unlikely to change. Customers, as we've mentioned several times, because it's such an important point, are going to be less forgiving during the second wave. From a consumer perspective, customers are going to be spending more cautiously. Interestingly, from a B2B perspective, we're finding, what would you say, Chris? Our clients aren't spending cautiously, but they're more they're seeking greater value, and they're seeking greater results. So that we're still getting quite significant spend from our clients, but we have to really demonstrate a value case when we're pitching for work. Fortunately, we're able to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
And then really, the kind of the magic at your fingertips is first-party data. The beauty of first-party data is only you've got access to it, and really by getting to know first-party data, you can understand your customers better than ever before, and nobody else has got this information. This can give you competitive edge, and can help shape your marketing strategy, so you really engage in a meaningful way with your customer base. And really, we'd really encourage you to kind of get familiar with that. And that's it. So we've included a link there which we'll send through, but we do quite a lot of these kind of training sessions on a lot of different issues, and we publish a number of them on our website as a kind of watch on demand session. So there's 3 or 4 different webinars on different topics that you can basically stream for free. So if you're interested in what we've talked about, which I hope you have been, you know, by all means check out the other content we've got online as well.